But anyway, yeah, welcome to Japanese Particles and Overview Part 3. Do I have snacks for a long stream? I do. I have popcorn, skinny pop, pretty good. I've got my flaccid string cheese. I've got water. I've got two little slices of pizza. Honestly, I am like over prepared for this. But it's going to be good. It's going to be good. I fed my dog. I gave him a treat, so he should be doing good. And I hope you guys are ready too. I hope you've got your snacks and are ready to jump into this because I sure am. I sure am. Anyway, yeah, so if you missed this for whatever reason, or if you're watching this later, this is going to be up on YouTube. If you have to bounce or leave or anything like that. So if you go to my YouTube channel, which is in my about information, and check it out there, you can subscribe. I currently have one whole subscriber, and it is my other usual YouTube account that I'm subscribed. So I have subscribed to myself. So I'm doing pretty good. Doing pretty good so far. So anyway, you can watch it later because the VOD does disappear after a while. And of course, I'll be posting the link to this presentation in the chat at the end of the lesson so you can have it forever. Forever and always. Sound good? Okay, let's jump into this. This is a doozy. All right, today's menu. Sentence ending particles. Look at this. Look at this. This is not even all of them. But today we are going to be covering ka, ne, yo, sa, wa, zo, ze, na, desho, kana, kashira, kamushiranai. Whew, that's a lot of them. Kana, yo, sa, wa, kana, yo, sa, wa, zo, ze, na, desho, kana, kashira, kamushiranai. Yeah, all of them. And then we're also going to be doing some conjunctions. These are different than before we did noun conjunctions, right? When you're listing nouns together. This time we're going to do sentence conjunctions for when you want to combine clauses, right? Or, clauses, dependent and otherwise. So we've got demo, kedo, shikashi, and ga. Fun stuff. Fun stuff. Okay, so, there we go, updates. Sentence enders. So, some Japanese particles have a quirky little function that isn't really present in English. These are called sentence enders. Yeah, we don't really have these. There's not a direct translation for a lot of these sentence enders because they usually just indicate a particular kind of emotion or feel. It's sort of like when you're texting and you throw a little face at the end of it in order to let the listener or the receiver of the text know how you're saying it, right? Kind of like just to clarify the way you want it to be read. For example, Maple in the chat said, "Do you have snacks for a long stream?" Smiley laughy face, right? So the smiley laughy face lets me know to read it as in like, do you have snacks for a long stream? right? As opposed to, hey, do you have snacks for a long stream? Kibishi, right? That's not exactly that's sort of what a lot of these sentence enders are like, right? Where's the Kuma sentence ender? Yeah, we're not letting Kuma into this. Yeah, Kuma. Yeah, he's not a proper Japanese grammar, unfortunately. Although maybe he is in our hearts. So they have a wide variety of purposes, such as asking a question, expressing doubt, implying agreement, or even just suggesting that you have more to say, right? I'm not finished yet. Let me finish my thought, right? So these sentence enders are a crucial part of communicating more like a native speaker and should be studied and practiced diligently. I'd also recommend actively listening to how native speakers use these particles in normal conversation. That is very important because you're going to see very shortly, but these particles are super nuanced. Like, there's a lot of overlap, and when to use one versus the other to get just the right feel for what you want to say is tricky. It's tricky, and it's something that comes with just sort of knowing and using and listening and gaining experience points with the particle itself, right? And some particles might have you might be better at or more comfortable with than others. Um, I'll point out some of the particles that I'm still working on myself to really get the nuance of it. Also, if the audio is messed up, please let me know. I'd rather know now than later. Anyway, there are like a million of these things. So, yeah, buckle up. We're not even covering all of them. And what's even crazier is that there are tons of combinations of particles where you put them together and then they mean even different things. And we're not covering that today because it is too much. Two ear audio is a go. Nice. We're dual wielding our ears today. Cool. Dual wielding ears. Sick. Okay. I don't know why, but for some reason it takes forever for the Twitch Studios to follow along with the scene when I click on the next slide, but whatever. So our first batch, we're doing ka, ne, and yo. So ka, this is probably one of the easier ones we're gonna do. This ending particle, it just means that this is a question. That's it. Yep. You just smack it on to the end of a sentence and bam, it's instantly become a question. It is a question mark. Bam. It's that easy. It really is. Watashi no super sutsu wa doko desu ka? Right? So, watashi no super sutsu wa doko desu ka? Where is my super suit? Right? Watashi no super sutsu wa doko desu ka? However, this is a pretty formal way of saying it. And actually, what I discovered when I was in Japan, I was living with a Japanese person who was telling me that he was like, you know, you shouldn't use ka all the time. Like when we're just talking to each other, it feels weird when you're using ka when you're asking me a question. And I was like, oh, really? Why? I thought it just means a question and you question mark, right? And he was telling me that it's sort of like it's kind of formal and it makes me sound a little arrogant slash aggressive or like too assertive when I'm like, nani o tsukutteru ka? Right? Like, what are you making? Nani o tsukutteru ka? Um, and so he was like telling me that instead, what I should do is that I should just use my voice to intone that I'm asking a question. And I'm doing this gesture for a good reason, as you will find out. So instead of saying nani o tsukutteru ka, what I could just say is nani o tsukutteru, nani o tsukutteru, or even nani o tsukutteru no, which I'm not covering no today because I was thinking about covering no, but I'm going to do it in a different thing because it's a shortened way of saying no des, which is like, that's a whole other thing. So, um, but anyway, just using that tone inflection to indicate that it's a question is a much more natural, it's a much more kind of just chill way of doing it that he was more comfortable with listening to. He just said that that's more comfortable, it's more natural. It doesn't make me feel quite as like I'm being attacked when you're like ka 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 ka, right? Ka ka. He's like, just say nani o tsukutteru. And since I already have nani, which means what, it's already obvious that I'm asking a question. So you don't need the ka. However, so you could just say, watashi no super sutsu wa doko? 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 Right? And then that is good. In fact, it's even better in an informal setting. Or you could say kai. Now, kai is a masculine variant. It's typically just used by men. Um, and there are a lot of, like, Japanese has quite a few things that are like, this is a male thing and this is a female thing. And there is some crossover, and those things are kind of being more, those lines are being more blurred as time goes on. And they're becoming like everything's kind of tending towards more gender neutral. But the fact of the matter is that at this point in time, there still are pretty clearly defined male ways of talking and female ways of talking. And That's just what it is right now. Also, of course, if you have any questions about these or inputs, please ask. So you could say, 私のスーパースーツはどこかいどこかい私のスーパースーツはどこかい And it's less harsh than ka, um, but it's definitely informal. For sure, informal. You do not use this in a business meeting or, yeah. This is an informal way of talking. Most definitely. Okay. Sentence enders are pretty cool, nay? Let's progress. So, nay. This is a particle that looks for agreement from the listener, okay? It's sort of like in English when we say, like, oh, this is cool, right? Right? When you say right, you're like, hey, agree with me, you know? Right? I'm right, right? Right? It's sort of like that, is one usage for it. So you could say, for example, infamous no ude ga tsuyousou ne. So here I'm saying infamous no ude is arm, ga tsuyousou, which means looks strong, right? So I'm like, Infamous's arms look strong, ne? Right? Like, yeah, don't they look strong? Look pretty strong, huh? Right? But in English, right sort of implies a question, right? Because you're sort of asking for that agreement. But ne doesn't do that. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's a question, and so you don't need to use a question mark, which I have not done here. Um, and because the speaker is seeking agreement, it's usually used when when it's obvious that the information is known to the other party, right? Like if you're outside and you're like, 今日は暑いね, right? Um, the other person is outside with you, right? So they know that it's hot. So this is shared information between the both of you. So you using ne, seeking confirmation, is appropriate because it's going to be easy to get because they already know, right? They already know it's hot. So they're likely to agree with you. Or if you're eating the same food and you're like, この寿司は美味しいね, you're like, yeah, it's good, right? This sushi is delicious. Now, also, what I've noticed in my experience is that lots of times this is sort of just a colloquial thing, or like it's not really something that you find in a lot of grammar books or anything. But as just a habit, I noticed that a lot of people would use it as a way to let the speaker or the listener know that they have more to say. And when they would do it, they would say it more shortly, and then they would usually be like accompany it with a head nod. They'd be like, 今日はね, right? Like today, right? Like とにかくね, like 今日ね. They're like they're telling a story and they're like letting you know that they've got more to say because they've said nay in that way, and they're going to say more stuff, essentially. So it's sort of a way of making sure, confirming that you're listening by seeking for that agreement, right? They're seeking for that agreement from you in order to confirm that you are engaged in the story, which is also why if you're telling someone a story or talking to someone in Japanese, they'll often be like interrupting you almost by going like, oh, すごいね, いいね, right? And it kind of feels weird because in English, that's sort of like if someone is just like, it sort of sounds like they're getting impatient with you, right? They're like, they're kind of like, hey, shut up, I'm not that interested. You're bugging me. But in Japanese, it's not like that. In Japanese, they're saying, to be like, I'm listening. Ooh, I'm engaged, right? So anyway, just a little bit of cultural differences there. Anyway, let's see. Aizuchi. Aizuchi, sounds given during a conversation to indicate comprehension. Oh, so they have a word for that. Okay, Aizuchi, nice. So there's even a word we just, TIL. Today I learned. There's a word for that in Japanese. It's called Aizuchi. Thanks, Moobles. Sounds given during a conversation to indicate comprehension. Aizuchi ne. Aizuchi. Okay. I saw your mama at the zoo. What? She maybe works there. Oh, I forgot the yo particle. Damn it. Anyway, yo, I forgot to put it in Japanese, but yeah. Oh snap. Oh snap. So we've got sa and yo, and they have fairly similar usages. So yo is pretty easy, right? It's used to indicate that you are certain in your position, or if you want to accentuate a point or inform someone of new information, then you can use yo. So like with ne, the information is shared between you and the other party, right? So you're using ne to seek agreement. But with yo, the other party doesn't know. Maybe you don't expect them to know, so you are going to inform them and you're going to punctuate it with a yo. So, so you could be like so mo na yo, which means I don't think so. A mo. Well, I've got the vocast at the end, so I don't think so, right? So mo na yo. I don't think so. You're punctuating that. Or you could say, 本当にすげえよ, meaning like that's really awesome. 本当にすげえよ. And suge is slang, just so you're aware. That is a slang term. It's short for sugoi, which means like awesome or cool. Or we have kyo wa gakko da yo, which means hey, today is school, or today I have school. Kyo wa gakko da yo. So you might be informing someone, hey, we got school today, right? You can't go to Junesu, right? And have your young life. Kyo wa gakko da yo. If they're like, hey, homie, let's go to Junesu, you can be like, kyo wa gakko da yo. Ikine yo. Right? We can't go. It's school today. You know, we have a shiken, we have a test. So sa can have a similar function to yo in that it can make a statement more assertive, right? You can see like, ninjin kirai dakara sa, right? It's because I don't like carrots. Ninjin kirai dakara sa. So you're punctuating it, but it's less formal, right? Sa is definitely a not used in business meetings type of particle. It is an informal thing. You could use yo. You could use yo in more formal circumstances, but sa not so much. It can also be used to indicate that there is hearsay, right? You could say, Yosuke wa shakin o otteru sa. So this could be like, hey, I heard that Yosuke has a lot of debt. Oh, I don't know if Yosuke's got debt, but that's just what I imagine. Probably because of his lavish spending, because his parents are the rich Junisu owners, the managers, and like maybe he's spending all this money, but then his parents cut him off, but he can't control himself, so he keeps spending and racking up credit card debt, and then it all just goes downhill from there. That seems like something that would happen to Yosuke. Yosuke wa shaki no otteru sa. I heard he's got debt. It's also an interjectory. Yosuke's spending a lot. Yeah, he's probably buying, a bunch of new headphones every time he breaks them when he crashes his Jutensha, right? So this also can have a similar thing to ne, to let them know that oh yeah, or maybe he's just buying bicycles. Yeah. He's just buying bikes because he keeps crashing them. Good point, Maple. It's also an introductory to know that you have more to say, kind of like ne was, but it's again less formal. You could be like, でもさ、それはダメだと思う. Meaning like, hey, but I think that's bad. I don't think that's good, right? それはダメ. It's bad. それはダメだと思うよ. You could even add a yo on the end. でもさ、それはダメだと思うよ. If you want to, sure. Now, sa is sometimes considered masculine, but it's actually not. It's really only just that it's really only seen that way because it's just sort of a very assertive particle, and a lot of like especially in Japanese culture, and all lots of cultures as well, women are kind of taught not to be assertive and to be, not to be assertive, right? And to be more demure and whatnot. So it's kind of seen that way, but it really isn't. And there are plenty of women that use sa. It's not a problem. It's gender neutral. It's just that maybe guys tend to be more comfortable being assertive and using a particle to indicate that than a lot of women in certain situations because of cultural circumstances. But that's it. I think Pain you saw a lot. Oh yeah, yeah. And Pain is kind of like she's sort of an assertive character, right? In Final Fantasy X too. She doesn't take crap from anyone and she's just kind of like, I'm cool, right? And has no problem asserting herself. So she uses Sa. Yeah, yeah. It's gender neutral. It's gender neutral. Okay. What you say? What you say? Yeah, like I said, my pun game this time is a little dicey. But anyway, Wa. Let's talk Wa. So Wa is feels Badman. Mooble's so disappointed. So Wa is generally used by women to be mildly assertive, right? When they want to be kind of assertive, but not as assertive as Sa, they'll use Wa, right? When they are stating a conclusion. They're like, Kohi ni ikuwa, Kohi ni ikuwa, right? I'm gonna go get coffee. Kohi ni ikuwa. So they're saying like, hey, I've decided I'm gonna go get coffee. However, a lot of times it's also used as an invitation to do something. Like if you're trying to be like, hey, let's go get coffee, you can use wa to indicate that. You can be like, hey, kohi ni ikuwa, kohi ni ikuwa. Like, hey, let's go get, like, I'm going to go get coffee. Do you want to come? Right? Right? Um, so with the right context, this same sentence could mean that you're sort of inviting someone to get coffee. Kohi ni ikuwa. Kohi ni ikuwa. Now, lots of men can use this too. This is another gender neutral one. Um, they can use it if they want to not be as assertive as Sa. Like if a man wants to be mildly assertive, then they can use the wa particle too. So they could say like Boku wa atsui wa. So I am hot, right? I'm a hot boy. Boku wa atsui wa. Boku wa atsui wa. Also, I've specifically chose wa here to indicate why it's important that the wa that is a particle does not use this character, right? This is the normal character for wa. And when it is a sentence ending particle, you use the regular wa. But when it's being used as the topic marker, which we covered in part 1 of this series, you use the ha particle instead. Super important because there's confusing stuff that could happen if you have wa wa, right? Boku wa atsui wa. But anyway, that's just a little side thing there. Okay, now the more manly version of wa, it could be sa, but it's more closer to like zo or ze. And both are considered very informal. Zo is a little more rude or harsh than ze is. But they can be used when you're expressing like excitement or if you want to express confidence or something like that. So you could say like snaku ni ikoze, snaku ni ikoze, or snaku ni ikozo, meaning like, hey, I'm gonna go to the snack bar. Which the snack bar, we've got one of those in Persona 4. They're like lounges where they serve alcohol and stuff like that. The drink flows as do the snacks. I've never been in one, but presumably that's what happens. And yeah, as far as I know, the only difference between these two is that Zo is more harsh than Ze is. If anyone has more information about that or more differences, I'd love to learn. But as far as I know, Ze is a little less harsh than Zo is. Okay, moving on. Na 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 na. Hey, 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 goodbye. Anyway, na is our next particle. So na is sometimes considered to be like a less formal version of ne. It's not as like, it's got a lot of different uses though, as you will see. But it can be used to seek agreement from the listener, just like ne can. Or you can actually use it to express like a longing emotion. Like if you really want to do something, like like you long to do something, you can use na. So you could say like これがいいな, like, oh, this is so good, like this is so good, これがいいな, right? Or you could be like, ah, 日本に行きたいな, like I want to go to Japan な, うん日本に行きたいな行きたいな. And a lot of times when it's used for the longing, they actually do write it out na ah with the a, the double a, na ah. Not always, but a lot of times they will. So be on the lookout for that. However, if you're using na with a verb in its infinitive form, right? Infinitive meaning it has not been conjugated at all, then it is it's an impolite command to not do something. An imperative is a command, so it's an impolite imperative to not do something. It's a negative impolite imperative. For example, razu mushi o taberu na, right? Which means Roz. He looked up at me. That's Roz is the name of my dog. Roz, mushi o taberu na, right? Don't eat the bug. Mushi is bug. Mushi o taberu na. Don't eat the bug. But this is where it gets a little tricky because na, if you use it in base 2 form of a verb, so if you conjugate your verb into base 2, which is the E form, which for the purposes of this lesson, I'm going to assume that you either know what this is already or can go look it up yourself, because that's not the purpose of this lesson. But if you use it in base 2 in the E form, it then becomes a positive impolite imperative. So now it's saying, yes, do something. So if I said, Razu, ano kumo tabena, then it means, Raz, eat that spider, right? Eat that spider. Ano kumo, spider, o tabena. Now, this is because it's an abbreviation of the base 2 plus nasai grammar structure, which indicates a polite command from a superior. But when you abbreviate it, it kind of becomes impolite. So normally it would be tabinasai. Like parents will say this to their kids a lot. They'll be like, yasai o tabinasai. Eat your vegetables, right? Yasai o tabinasai. If they're like, mostly they'll use like tabete, which is which is less harsh and more of like an equal footing. Like you're not talking as a superior to someone, you're more on equal footing. You'll be like, yasai o tabete. But if the kid's just not eating it and the parent is fed up with their butterscotch, then they're going to be like, hey, yasai o tabenasai. Eat those vegetables. So if it's in base 2 with the na, then it switches to become a yes, do something. So that just another way that this na particle is out to get you. Okay, how we doing? We all good so far? Following along? Questions, comments? If you have any, throw them at me. So now we've got uncertainty, which we've got a lot of ways to show that we're uncertain about things. Lots of options. Nah. Nothing, huh, Maple? Nah. Nice. Very nice. So all 3 of these are used to indicate that you're uncertain about something. It can be used when you're asking a question that you're unsure of the answer, or it can be used when you are making a guess about something that you don't have a lot of confidence in. For example, Persona 4 ga motto hayaku susumu deshou, right? So this means, well, Persona 4 will probably progress faster, more quickly. We'll probably progress more quickly. The deshou means probably, and I'm not saying I'm totally certain in this claim. If I used yo, then I'd be like, yeah, Persona 4 is definitely going to start progressing more quickly. But because I'm using deshou, I'm saying that it's likely to happen, but I'm not 100% confident in it, right? Confident, yeah, confident is the word. I'm not 100% confident. 100% 自信を持てない, right? I don't have 100% confidence in it. Now they're kind of interchangeable in a lot of ways, but if I were to try to make like some kind of direct translations, then I would say desho is sort of like likely. Kamoshirenai is probably, and kana and kashira are kind of like I wonder if it will happen, right? I wonder if it'll happen. This is just sort of like a little bit of kind of ranking as far as how certain you are within this very small window of doubt, right? There's this sort of like window of uncertainty that we're existing in, and so there's slight variance in just how uncertain you are. And I kind of maybe rank them like this, but it's very bimyo, it's very sketchy. You could the show is probably the most confident of these, but you could make some arguments between these two. Yeah. But like past Mr. Slippy said, it's very nuanced. Okay. Daro. Okay, more on doubt. So daro is just a less formal version of desho. It has exact same usage. It's just less formal. There's no difference between desho and daro, other than it is like one is less formal. Okay, daro, darod, sandstorm. Man, I could have done a sandstorm Darude pun. Oh, I just thought of it now. Crap. Anyway, I'll be better next time. So we could say, Mubrus wa shoshi no uketoru desho. Or Mubrus wa shoshi no uketoru daro. Which means Moobles will probably get a promotion. Hey, a shoshin. Promotion, nice. Mubrus wa shoshi no uketoru desho. Uketoru. I'm stumbling all over. Uketoru desho. Right. So he'll probably get. We're saying he'll likely get it. Right. He'll get it. He'll likely get the promotion. We're fairly confident, but we don't want to be certain. Now, kamoshirenai is close, but it's a little bit less certain. So if we were like, Muberus wa shoshi no uketoru kamo, or kamoshirenai. Kamo is just an abbreviated version of kamoshirenai, and it's used just because kamoshirenai is very long. So a lot of times in less formal settings, they'll say kamo instead. Kamo. Muberus wa shoshi no uketoru kamo. Meaning that, he'll probably get it. So instead of being like, yeah, he's likely going to get the promotion, we're like, it'll probably be Movables that'll get it. We're just a little less short at this point. Do, yeah. Some sandstorm action. Yeah, that song's sick. Let's see. So kana or kashira is more like I wonder. For example, gyoza 40 ko o tabetara ii kana, which means, I wonder if it would be good if I ate 40 gyozas, 40 pot stickers. Would it be good if I ate 40 pot stickers? I wonder, right? So you're sort of like not really sure. Also, this is based on a true story. This comment, hell yeah, it would. Yeah. So when I was in Japan, I was in Hirakata, which is by Osaka, and one of my friends told me about this place where they had gyoza tabehodai on Thursdays, which is all you can eat gyoza for like, it was something like hachisen or something. Like it was like, not hachisen, no, hapyaku-en. No, not hapyaku-en. That's too. No, maybe it was like, I think it was like isenen. It was like anywhere from like 800 to 1,000 yen. And it was all you can eat gyoza. So we were like, hey, let's set a goal to eat 40 gyoza each. So we were in total, and there was like 2 other people there. So in total, we wanted to eat like 160 gyozas. And Oh my god. I like I got to I think like 24, 25, and I started feeling so sick. I started feeling so sick. And then from there, I had to ride my bike because that was during lunch, and I had to ride my bike to a dinner appointment that I had that was at another Tabe Hodai, which means all you can eat place for yakiniku. And so I rode my bike there to eat more tabe hodai, and my friend actually threw up along the way of our bike ride, and I almost did. Like I was ready to just puke because it was bad. But anyway, that's a little story time from when I tried to eat 40 gyozas and failed. Put them out of business. Yeah, that was the goal. Never offer that deal again. So maybe it's good that we failed, but I didn't want to eat gyoza for like 3 weeks. Bronze medal, third place. Okay. Oh my god. Look at her keredomo, which means but. Look at her keredomo. So now we're going to move on to butts. So we've got 4 different butts here that we're going to analyze. We've got demo, shikashi, keredomo, or just for short, kedo, and ga. Now, these are all ways of saying, yeah, the peaches. Oh, yeah. These are all ways of saying but, although, or however. And they have slight differences in how they're used, but they're pretty much interchangeable, particularly if you're a beginner and you're just learning. You can pretty much just use demo and get away with it pretty easily. Um, and you're generally fine with that. But if you want to, level up your Japanese game, then you can start examining the nuances of this, and hopefully, I can tell you some of these nuances. Also, for the future, we're not going to be using keredomo. Keredomo. We're just going to be using kedo because it's just the less formal version of keredomo, and yeah, we're just going to stick with kedo. Okay. Demo first, you're going to see why this is actually a pretty good pun despite being simple. So demo is usually used at the beginning of the sentence. You don't use demo to combine 2 sentences. It's used when you are starting a new sentence, sort of like however, right? Or in English, when we're talking, we'll say, but, yada, 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 right? Whatever thing you want to say. Like, I'm not racist, but no, 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 no. Here's all the reasons why I am, or whatever it is. Um, so it's usually used at the beginning of the sentence. For example, you could say, 明日は仕事でもあんまり行きたくない。明日は仕事でもあんまり行きたくない。Which means tomorrow I have work, but I don't really want to go. Now, if you've ever taken an English course, you can probably see that most of your teachers would be like, hey, combine this into one sentence, right? Why do you have this period here? It's unnecessary, right? They cross that out, lowercase that, maybe make a comma, depending on if you have an independent clause here or not. You got 2 independent clauses. But you'd want to make this one sentence, right? Now you can do this, but it sounds weird if you use demo. It's not really it's not really native like. Instead, you would use kedo. So 明日は仕事けどあんまり行きたくない。I have work tomorrow, but I don't really want to go. Now, another way you could say this, I'm not going to cover this right now, but actually you could say no ni as well, which might even sound more natural to me in certain situations. So you could say 明日は仕事のにあんまり行きたくない, which means even though I have work tomorrow, I don't want to go. And there's a little bit of crossover there. I just wanted to point that out in case anyone was wondering. Noni could work too, um, or you could use kedo. Okay, shikashi. Shikashi also, like demo, comes at the beginning of a sentence, and it's used like kind of more like however in English. Demo, it's a lot more formal and dramatic than the other words here. Shikashi, it's sort of like if you were to imagine like a movie and it's like everyone thought that they were safe. However, they were wrong, right? Shikashi, machigateru. They were wrong, right? Shikashi, machigateru. So it has more like gravitas, right? And more dramatic flair to it, which makes it pretty cool. But it's not used that often in formal or in informal conversation. So, yeah. Okay. Ga, I can't stand the keto diet. I almost feel like I have to apologize for this one. This is so bad. Ga, I can't stand the keto diet. Anyway, kedo, it's often used at the end of a sentence. We already talked about one usage of it, which is to combine two clauses. But a lot of the times, if the second clause is obvious, you can actually just drop the second clause entirely and just say kedo, and then it is a little bit better, right? Um, uh, it's like a little bit better in the sense that it's not as harsh. You don't have to say the obvious thing. You don't have to say the obvious reason. Oh my god. Oh my damn it. I could have gone, oh my god, look at her keredomo. I, oh. Anyway, moving on from that. So, for example, you could say, "oen shitai kedo," which means I want to support them, but so the implication here is that there's an obvious reason why the speaker can't support the listener, right? It's there's an obvious reason that maybe you already stated or maybe is implied of why you can't support whoever you're saying that you can't support, right? There's some reason why. But in Japanese culture, being non-confrontational is sort of considered a virtue. You're not supposed to be assertive and aggressive and in your face. You're supposed to be pretty polite and, you know, back off kind of thing. Like, don't get too in people and too aggressive and things like that. Um, uh, so it's sort of like a cultural thing to just not have to say the reason why you're not going to be helping someone or supporting them if it's obvious why you're not going to do that, right? You're just like, or like, like, I want to help, but, or like, I want to go to your party, but, you know, we're just kind of acquaintances. We don't really have that good of a connection or relationship. Whatever it is, whatever the implied reason is. So you just leave it implied. Sometimes you don't, and sometimes you don't have to say it at all. Ga. Oh, yeah, Ga. You thought Ga was done? You thought you were done with Ga? You thought you were finished with Ga? Just as being a subject particle? Nope, Ga is back. Like Slim Shady. Um, uh, and it has a totally different meaning now. It's got a completely different meaning. Uh, it's a bit easier than the topic marker ga. Ga is sort of like kedo, but it's more formal. It's more formal than kedo. So you could say ikitain desu or ikitain desu ga, meaning like I want to go, but ikitain desu ga, I'm not going to go, right? Um, but there is another variant which is daga, which we need to talk about. Now, the da in the daga, the da is just the informal version of des, which is the verb to be, right? So you can use this to begin a sentence, right? So ga, when it's combined with da, switches over to the function that demol and shikashi had, which means that it can go at the beginning of a sentence. So you could say, それがわかります, right? Like, I understand that. だが、まだ何も変わりません. So you could say, however, that doesn't change anything, right? Nothing is changed. まだ何も変わりません. まだ何も変わりません. I said kawari, but it should be kawari. Kawari means something totally different. 変わりません. So the da is just meaning like you're just saying like that is, but, right? That is, but, like that is true, but nothing changes, right? それがわかります. だが、まだ何も変わりません. Okay, so that's daga. Hey, and that's the end of our discussion here. So here we've got, this is our vocast in order of appearance, of course, as usual. And I didn't say this before, I don't think, but I am not, I haven't been including words that I've included in other vocab lists because you should just follow those ones. Just do those ones, just like watch those and get that information there. So yeah. But anyway, that's that. So we've got doko, ude, tsioi, so, omo, honto, suge, gakko, shakin, o, dame, kohi, iku, boku, yeah, you can see them. You can read, hopefully. Metal, yeah, moobles. Anyway, I am going to post this in the chat. If you are watching this on YouTube, the link to the presentation will be in the description. And then if you want more, you can follow me on Twitch or come and watch me on Twitch and ask questions live, baby. Yeah, anyway, that is that. And yeah.